Hello learners, I welcome you all to this course on education, concept, nature and perspectives. The course code is BESC 131. Today we will be learning about education during ancient time. Before I begin, I would like to introduce myself. I am Dr. Rajlakshmi Raina, Assistant Professor, Amity Institute of Behavioral and Allied Sciences, Amity University, Uttar Pradesh. The learning outcome of this lesson is you will be able to critically analyze the education system prevailing during the ancient period. Definitely after this session, you will be able to discuss the different methods of teaching during the Vedic period. Also, you will be able to explain the education during the Buddhist period. So, to begin with, we will see how was the education during the ancient Indian time. Learners, India has a long history of well-established education system. The modern educational systems are the outcomes of educational systems prevailing during the past. We can say the modern or the contemporary systems of education, they draw their essence from the past educational systems. It is the historical outlook which helps in studying the problems of education. India has a magnificent history of education since the Vedic age. Indeed, there was an ideal education system during Vedic, Brahmanic and Buddhist era. So, we will be dealing in detail about every component, every element of education, the educational system during this era. So, to begin, first let us see the history of education in India. We had Vedic period before 600 BC, followed by Buddhist period from 600 BC to 1200 BC. Then medieval period from 1200 AD to 1800 AD, followed by British period which was for 1800 AD to 1947, and now post-independence period after 1947. Education during the Vedic period, we will look into what was the Vedic literature, aims and objectives of Vedic education, the features of Vedic education, the different methods which were used during the Vedic period, how were the duties performed by the students, and what type of cordial relationship did the gurus and the Shishyas have. We will be also taking into consideration the Gurukulas and the qualities of the guru during Vedic period. What was the curriculum followed during the Vedic period? So, in education, we will see during the Vedic period, Vedas were the original source of philosophy of life and systems of education during the whole ancient India. Education during ancient India, it consisted of teachings of Vedas. Learners, you know, we have 4 Vedas such as Rig Veda, Samved, Atharved and Yajurved. They are the sources of knowledge about the culture, about the civilization. They are the sources of knowledge about the life, the philosophy of people during the ancient India. Rig Veda is the essence of the basic teachings of the great Indian thinkers, the teachers, the Rishi Munis that we have. Education during the Vedic period, it was based on the text which was given in the Rig Veda. So, Vedic education thus consisted of teachings of what was given in the Vedas. So, let us see what was the literature which consisted the Vedic literature. So, Vedic literature, it consisted of 4 Vedas, 6 Vedangas, 4 Upavedas, 4 Brahmanas, 180 Upanishads, 6 systems of philosophy, Bhagavad Gita, and 3 Smritis. So this was all which was there in the Vedic literature. So you can understand the, our literature, how rich it was. Now let us see what were the aims and the objectives of Vedic education. The aim of education during the Vedic period was to enable an individual to understand the truth and to attain moksha. Now, what is moksha? Moksha means liberation and emancipation. Also, we can say it is known as mukti. Mukti, it is derived from a Sanskrit word mukt, which means to be liberated from the life-death cycle. It is the final stage into which dharma, artha, kama, automatically they all culminate. Now what is dharma? Dharma means living a virtual and a moral life. And artha, it means attaining the means of wealth, security, prosperity. Coming to kama, what is kama? It means appreciating the sensual pleasures, the love and enjoyment. So there were 3 goals of Purusharth through which individuals move towards achievement of moksha. Again, the aim of education was to develop the character and the personality, the preservation of the culture. Morality or the right behavior was the highest dharma. Education was regarded as a means to inculcate value such as obedience to elders, truthfulness, honesty, so on. Education also aimed at the infusion of piety and religiousness in the minds of the pupil. Happiness in other world was given more stress, than the happiness in this world. So they, according to them, this world was unreal. Therefore, they focused more on, the stress was given more on the happiness, beyond. Then again, the aim of education was vocational training. Vocational training, basically, it is to aim an individual to become self-sufficient, to be able to, like the different types of trainings which can be given to a pupil so that he can sustain. Then there were different features of Vedic education. The educational system that prevailed during the Vedic times had some unique characteristics. Education was confined to the upper castes and to those who were brahmacharis. Now you must be knowing, in Indian tradition, a person's life cycle is divided into 4 stages. The 4 ashrams we call. First, brahmacharya, where he is a student. Then grahasthashram, where he can become a householder. After this, we have the 3rd ashram, which is vanaprasthashram, where you can, it's after the grahas, the 3rd one, and you go towards the forest. We call it a forest walker, or we call it a forest dweller. And the last one is the sannyasa. Then coming to what were the different methods during the Vedic period. So we'll see that the Vedic period emphasized more on recital or avritri, that is repetitive recital. Mostly 3 methods of teaching were being used by teachers during that period. First, we call Shravan. Shravan means listening. So students listen to the words or text which was uttered by the teacher. So as soon as the gurus would utter, they would listen to it and then they would memorize. So this was one of the ways by which, the teaching used to, there was teaching learning between the pupil and the teacher. Second method was Manan. Manan means deliberation. It was an advanced method of teaching through which students were taught how to reflect upon the topic which was taught by the teacher. And the third method was Nidhi Dhyasana, or we can say meditation. through this method, realization of truth was to be accomplished. Now, students used to go and they used to live in Gurukul. Gurukul, it is the ashram of the Guru. And now let us see what was the duty of the students when he used to reside in Gurukul. The students had to do the service of the Guru. He was required to work for Gurukul. He also prepared the necessary things which were, necessary for rituals like yagya. The students had to go out for alms, and this definitely developed a spirit of generosity in them. Students' main duty was to study. He learnt and attended to the instructions of the Guru very gently. Thus, we can say in Gurukul, he spent the life of an ideal student, which was simple and well disciplined, well regulated. So, we can see the relationship between the Guru and the Shishya. Guru very affectionately looked after his taught. The Shishya was considered as, or we can say the Guru, he looked as a fatherly figure for the Shishya. He never let him suffer in any way, and he always worked towards the all-round development of his Shishya. So, what is Gurukul? I hope you have understood Gurukul system. It necessitates the stay of the student away from his home, at the home of the teacher, or in boarding house of established reputation, we can say. Basically, this was done during the ancient Indian education time. In Vedic age, teacher of the Vedic age, he was of uppermost caliber. He had very good qualities, like he was in terms of knowledge, in terms of the spiritual development, he always emphasized on religious and spiritual development of their thoughts. Every obligation of the Shishya, the learner, was on Gurus, and the Guru used to continuously try to improve different qualities of his learners. And definitely, he had an aim that his Shishya should be better than him. So, he always used to strive for the improvement, wherever the learner was lacking. Teacher's responsibility was to show the correct path to the learners so that they could realize the ultimate truth. Now, let's see the rich curriculum during the Vedic period. So, curriculum during the Vedic period, was chosen to enhance the process of all-round development of the learner's personality. The students were taught to learn 4 Vedas, Sanskrit language, 6 Vedangas, rituals, grammar, astronomy, etymology, phonetics, even some professional and technical subjects like Ayurveda, or we say Chikitsa Shastra, medicine and surgery, astronomy, ethics, philosophy, astrology, military education, or we say Arthashastra, they all comprise the Vedic curriculum. Ancient Indian education was dominated by religion. So, kindness, forgiveness, perseverance, nobleness, they were inculcated in these students. Teachings of hymns and rituals, this was the most emphasized thing, which was emphasized by the teachers. Character building. The Gurus thought that if the students would learn good habits from the early life, then their future would be peaceful and happy. The learners were under the direct and personal supervision of their teachers, who was to look after not only their intellectual development but also their moral conduct. So, maximum emphasis was on character building. Now, let's see about the women education. So, women education also received proper attention during the Vedic age, with the result that women became rishikas after receiving education. They even composed hymns. They used to take part in religious rituals, and they were also taught practical and useful handicrafts and household duties. Though the Vedic education was religious in nature, yet useful and needful subjects were general for general public, they were also included in the Vedic curriculum. People could gain education of various arts and crafts. Subjects like agriculture, animal husbandry, they were also taught during the Vedic education. So we can say Vedic education aimed at providing students full opportunity for the development of human qualities, for the development of good character, for providing knowledge of various subject areas, and definitely for ensuring social prosperity. During the ancient Indian time, we also had education during the Buddhist period. So now we will be discussing about what was the education during the Buddhist period. Now, Buddhism. This evolved in India and was started by Gautam Buddha, who was an Indian prince of Sakya dynasty. Buddhism had spread over India by 600 BC and developed in the form of sanghas. Buddhism was the natural evolution of the Indian thinking, which was expressed in the ancient Indian religious, or we can say philosophical or social or political spheres of the society. Buddhism basically it spread through monasteries and viharas. These were the two, you can say, where the educational activities were carried out by the monks. The history of education during Buddhist period is closely related to the history of these monasteries and viharas, as there were no independent educational institutions or nor were there any centers other than these religious centers. So basically we can say the Buddhism it spread through monasteries and viharas, and only monks or shramans were authorized to impart education to the people. Thus the monasteries and viharas they became the center of living as well as cultural life. Now let's see what were the aims of education during this period. The aims of Buddhist education were individual as well as they were social. Coming to the individual aim, it developed the moral character. It basically emphasized upon the moral character. And under the social aim, more promotion of culture, social efficiency, these elements were focused. The most important aim of education was to show the path by which an individual can overcome the desires and ultimately achieve nirvana. In order to take admission in any sangh, monastery or vihar, one had to go through the initiation ceremony. And this initiation ceremony for admission was known as Pabja. And Pabja was performed during the Buddhist period before a student could get into the Sangha. The pupil joined the monastery where they received education for 12 years, and during this period they got prepared for Sangha life. After undergoing education for 12 years, the monk at the age of 20 years had to go through the UPASAMPADA, this ceremony, and then he became the permanent member of the Sangha. Generally, the methods of performing UPASAMPADA were slightly different from the Pabja. And after UPASAMPADA, a student became a full-fledged monk, having no concerns with the family life. And Pabja was a ritual for limited time, but UPASAMPADA was permanent and for the whole life. Now let's see the curriculum. Monks passed on the religious knowledge to their learners. The curricula were oral, ceremonial and book-based. Most of the monks were carrying on the study of teaching of Buddha and Dharma Shastra. Students were taught spinning, weaving, painting, tailoring, writing, arithmetic, printing. All this was also included in the curriculum. The curriculum of the Buddhist monks included the subject matters contained in the Tripitaka. Sutta Pitaka was a collection of discourses on various subjects of Buddha. Vinaya Pitaka comprised monastic code and Abhidharma Pitaka contained the philosophical interpretations of the doctrines of Buddhism. Buddhist education was divided into two stages. One was primary, the other one secondary. At primary education stage, reading, writing, arithmetic, these were focused. And at the higher education stage, religion, philosophy, Ayurveda, logic, metaphysics, military training, all this was taught. And everyone was free to choose his subject without any restriction. The medium of Buddhist education was the local language. You must have heard Lord Buddha himself gave his teachings in local languages at different places. There was not much importance given to Sanskrit, as we have seen Sanskrit was more emphasized during the ancient period. But here Sanskrit was not given that importance during the Buddhist education. And now let's see what were the different methods. The methods of teaching during the Buddhist periods, they were oral, question answer. It was to impart moral instructions. Teachers used to tell them different types of stories which had some moral value, and the stories thus told, they had a dramatic effect on the moral development of these students. Thinking and questioning, these were adopted. This was the method which was adopted for promotion of intellectual development. Let them reason, let them think, let them question. The Buddhist system of education, like Brahmanical, lays equal stress upon the efficacy of the method of debate, discussion. Buddhists aimed to answer to the old philosophical questions, how to attain salvation. Buddhist education laid the foundation stone of a rich culture and inspired people to lead pure, simple and ideal life. So I am very much hopeful that after going through this video lesson, you will definitely be able to answer to these questions. The questions like explain the aims of education during the Vedic period, critically analyze the education system which was prevailing during the ancient period, discuss different methods of teaching during the Vedic period, explain the education during the Buddhist period, and also discuss the aims of education during the Buddhist period. So learners, I think you must have understood what are the aims of education during the Vedic period, and you must have understood, you must be able to understand different methods of training, methods of teaching which were adopted during the Vedic period as well as the Buddhist period. Also, it will be now I think very clear to you, you will be able to understand that yes, what was the different curriculum and what was the different relationship between the Guru and the Shishya. Thank you.